Geis. He's a personal trainer and wellness coach out at the Rochester Athletic Club. He's kicked my butt a few times in the past. A while back, but yes, John, he knows what he's doing. He's been in personal training for 25 years and at the RAC since 1999. He's served as a PT educator specialist at Mayo Clinic for 7 years, and right now has currently over 9,000 wellness coaching sessions completed since 2012. So he's pretty active. And he's worked with clients of all ages. Your oldest client is 93.
93
really.
Currently.
There you go. So anyway.
One more year and she'll have the record.
So please welcome John Geis.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So let me know. Can you hear me? Can you hear me all right? Okay, great. So fitness for the ages. What does that mean? We'll see. I'm going to bring some research in at the end. So hopefully have a little bit of fun along the way. It's pretty wide open. How's that? You can ask questions along the way. So rather than save your question to the end, if you have a question on something that I say, you've heard something differently in Dr. Oz today. I don't know what he said today, so who knows what he said. But if you know, let me know. I know you hear stuff every day on the news and read it. And as Ann said, I've been in the field for a while. And I've just about seen it all. But every week I see something new. So I haven't seen it all. And I know that there's still more to learn, and that's what I like to do. I like to learn. So to start off, after the first slide, I'm going to bring in some opinions from a couple fitness experts along the way, and I'll point out when that happens. You probably recognize when that is, but let me start off with a little video here. New Year's resolution, 3-minute workout, or also how not to start an exercise program. Let me see if I can bring this up here. And this isn't one of my current clients, but definitely could use some help. Sorry. No, that's not it. Let me try this. There we go. All right, here we go. All right, I'll bring it back to the beginning. Can't miss that. All right, so Bernard the polar bear. Let's enjoy his first day at the gym. Turn the volume up a little bit. It's in a keyboard. It's not any, there's no words, so just some sound effects. Some of you remember these, probably. They were popular in the gym years ago. I'm sure the new version's coming any day now. That's a good one. On the weightlifting. Enough weight training on the cardiovascular. Okay, so Bernard had a first rough day at the gym there. That was, I think, animated on, yeah, it's a live camera from the rack. It's usually the nighttime crowd, there's a little bit rough. Yes, all right, so Bernard's not one of the fitness experts, so we won't come back to him probably tonight. So I do have a couple others. So exercise is recommended by physicians all over the world probably, but especially in Frank and Ernest's world. I'm recommending exercise before your muscles get amnesia. All right, so it is recommended by physicians. There's actually an initiative that started in 2009 by the American Medical Association, AMA, pretty prestigious group, and ACSM, American College of Sports Medicine. The initiative is called Exercise is Medicine, RX. And basically what they said is that their initiative was to have every physician with every patient on every visit prescribe exercise. Because there's not a single condition that I've known of, and I watch for this, not a single condition that I know of where exercise is contraindicated, where exercise would be harmful. At first in 2009 when it came out, the one condition that I saw that was maybe some hesitation to prescribe exercise was heart failure, congestive heart failure. And it makes sense because their heart's already working really hard in congestive heart failure. But lo and behold, a study came out a few months later, and 6 weeks of mild exercise at the right level, right intensity for people with congestive heart failure, they had dramatic improvement in heart function and fitness results. So any person of any age with any condition, exercise is medicine. And I talk to people, as Ann said, I talk to people on the phone from all over the country every day. I have yet to talk to someone in Hawaii, and I guess I've figured this out because if you live in Hawaii, you don't really need a wellness coach because you're in Hawaii. I don't know why you need a wellness coach. But I talk to people all over the country, and one of the things that I encourage people to remember when it comes to exercise is that every time you exercise without fail, no exceptions, exercise always works. You'll be healthier for exercising if you do it safely and effectively. There's cautions. Bernard shows us how not to do it, obviously. So what does fit mean, being fit mean to you? Fit into your clothes? Well, some people have. Fit in with the crowd? Or does it mean having the strength and energy to be able to do the things you need to do every day, like work, and then have energy to do the things you want to do when you have time? To me, I think that's one of my favorite definitions of all time of fitness, is to basically to be healthy and to have the strength and energy you need to do what we have to do every day, however many hours that is of work, perhaps. And then when you do have some time, a few minutes, hours, a weekend, to be able to enjoy recreation and do the things you want to do, you have the energy and strength to do that and enjoy that as well. So to me, that's my, I think, objective, I guess, with just about everyone I work with, is to have them fit into that definition of fitness. Again, along the way, if you have questions, let me know. Simple things to do to assess your current level of fitness. I'm just going to give you a real brief overview of some things you can do sort of objectively, sometimes subjective, I guess, but to get yourself started even at home. But if you go into a gym or a fitness center, some or all of these will probably be done, or they should be done, before you start exercising, okay? So first one, this one actually is more a measure of health risk, cardiovascular risk, and some other risks as well. Cancer and other things can be determined actually by a simple waist measurement. How many of you have heard of the term BMI, or body mass index, okay? Well, I have, and you won't see that up here tonight because I have issues with that. On the BMI scale, I am morbidly obese. I am currently about 90 pounds overweight on the BMI scale because the BMI does not factor into fitness or bone density or muscle density. I played football in college, and I thought about it. Actually, it was 30 years ago this fall that I played my last college football season, and I'm just as strong now as I was then, in some ways stronger than I was then. A little bit heavier than I was then, but I don't like to think of myself as morbidly obese, and BMI puts me into that. On this scale, the waist measurement, I am at risk a little bit because of my waist measurement being higher than what it should be. So for men, the waist measurement should be less than 40 inches. For men, it should be less than 40 inches. Above that, there's significant increase in risk in cardiovascular disease and occurrences of many cancers. For women, the waist measurement should be less than 35 inches. Above that, again, high risk of cardiovascular disease and other diseases. Ideally for men, less than 37 inches is even better. For women, 31 inches or so is ideal. It doesn't take into account really height or weight, but have you heard of apple and pear shape? Yes. Right? Okay. Which one have you heard is the unhealthier fruit? Pear. Actually, no. The fruit shape apple is the unhealthier one, because if you're an apple, you have weight around your waist. Okay? We know that body fat around the waist tends to also indicate body fat internally, and that's around the organs, and that's usually an unhealthier fat, and there's more cardiovascular risk with body fat around the waist. Men tend to have it more there. There are body types, men and women, that are more apple-shaped or more pear-shaped. Weight below the waist, a lot of women don't care for the weight in their hips, but it doesn't really matter as far as health risk. You can be a pear like this and not really have a whole lot of risk, but have an apple like this and you can be at a lot of risk. So apple and pear shape, the waist measurement. Waist to hip ratio actually will refer more to the apple and pear shape, because what you do is you measure your waist and you measure your hips and you divide that and come up with a ratio. If you're interested in finding those, you'll put the terms in the internet. You'll find tables that show the numbers you should be adding, even how to do it. Simple measurements. But waist measurement, we know, really is actually a better indicator than BMI for cardiovascular risk. Just plain one simple measurement. Posture. So, how do you look when you stand? How do you look when you sit? I have a simple assessment that I do of every client I see, every member in the club. When I see someone stand still, the first thing I look at when they're standing is I look at their hands. And if you see my hands, right now you can see the back of my hands, I would say that person has some posture issues. And usually what happens when you see someone's hands and they're standing, their shoulders are rounded forward. If you see them from the side, usually their head is forward. If my head is forward just 1 inch of this position, where I'm standing straight up, if my head is forward just 1 inch, it puts 35 pounds of stress in the muscles in the back of my neck. So if you have muscle tension or tension headaches, if you're on the computer, if you're driving like this, playing games on the phone, whatever it is, and you're sitting with your head forward, you're putting a lot of stress in your muscles every day, in the back of your neck, on top of your shoulders. If you bring your chest up, for most people, that's going to help correct their head position right there. Most people don't walk around like this, okay, with their head forward like this, but they do walk with their chest dropped, and that brings their head forward. When their chest comes down, usually the arms come forward, shoulders round forward, you see the back of their hands. So simple correction is to pull your belly button in, lift your chest up, bring your shoulder blades up and back, and now you'll see my thumb and index finger when you look from the front. And that's what you should see if you look in the mirror, glass doors. So from now on, whenever you walk by glass doors or mirror, just stop and look at yourself, admire yourself for a while, check your posture. If you see this, just do a quick correction. Your chest up, shoulders up, back, and then drop your shoulders down, and you should see thumb and index finger. Just this simple position of your shoulders being forward can lead to all kinds of shoulder problems. How many of you in here have had tendonitis or bursitis or one of those itises? Okay, in your shoulders, a lot of people. I think last year for me, in 25 years, was a year of the shoulder. I had more people come to me with shoulder problems last year than ever in any year before that I've practiced in personal training. I think more people are getting more conditioned now and aware of core and low back issues, and I don't see low back as much anymore. But I do see shoulder stuff all the time, and a big part of shoulder stuff is poor posture. If your shoulder rounds forward, your arm is hanging in your rotator cuff muscles all day long, you get an overuse injury in your shoulders just from posture, and much more chance for impingement as well. So correct your posture. Simple thing you can do. Next. What do I have next? Cardiovascular. Simple things to assess your fitness. You can do protocols that are out there. You can do something simple. Find a low step in your stairway in your house, something you can comfortable stepping up and down on. Check your resting heart rate first for 30 seconds. See what your resting heart rate is. Set a digital timer or some kind of clock you can see for 3 minutes. Step up and down for 3 minutes at a good steady pace. Measure your heart rate right after you're done. Compare your heart rate. If you exercise for 6 weeks, you do walking, swimming, whatever, you do a step test 6 weeks later. If you're more fit, your heart rate should be lower after the 3 minutes of stepping. It's going to work. Guaranteed it will work. If you exercise, your heart will get more fit. You'll have a lower heart rate. You'll get more conditioned. It gets more efficient. Doesn't have to pump less blood, just gets more efficient at doing it. Okay? The Rockport 1 mile test or walk, another test like that, basically you find a track or somewhere it's marked off for a mile, and you check your resting heart rate, you check your heart rate at the end, you check your time for the mile walk, And then 6 weeks, 8 weeks later, test yourself again. Walk the same mile, check your heart rate, check your time. It'll show that your fitness is improved if you've exercised in between. Try to do your homework or club work or whatever you do it. Strength testing. This is one that I put a caution on because if you are not doing the technique properly for even a push-up, you can put your shoulders at risk or put your body at risk of an injury. And for me, my primary goal, always objective with everyone I work with of any age, sports, if it's whatever it is, whatever the goals are, is always safe and effective. And to me, it doesn't make any sense to injure someone when you're testing them to see how fit they are. Oh, by the way, I have tendonitis in my shoulder now because of the push-up test we did. Well, good, we'll start on rehab first. Okay, that's not what I want to do. Okay, so be careful if you do a strength test. There are many out there that can even do home tests. I looked online just last night, and I don't know. I have issues with a lot of stuff out there. I won't even get into that. Lots of issues. But strength testing, be careful. Push-ups, you got to have good shoulder strength. You have to have good core strength just to do a push-up properly and not injure your shoulders when you're testing yourself. The plank, it's an exercise. You're on your elbows and your toes on the floor. You tighten your abdominals. Basically, it's testing abdominal core strength. It's a pretty basic test as well. But again, strength testing would be one that I'd caution you. I think you're better off choosing exercises to work your muscle groups. And maybe after a week or two that you've learned the exercise, then test yourself as far as how much resistance am I using. Is it a yellow band or is it a 5-pound weight for 5 repetitions? And then 6 weeks later, compare where you're at. You'll see your strength increase. All you have to do is all you need is a baseline. You don't have to test yourself to a max. Go ahead, yeah. How do you do a push-up properly? Push-up properly, yeah. Well, there's all kinds of variations. One, basically, if I'd be lying down, my hands are about chest height, and then your hands should be underneath your elbows. And for most people to start with, if they haven't done one in a while, the best thing to do is be on your knees first. The other thing you do before you push yourself up off the floor is pull your belly button in. If you don't pull your belly button in, you do a push-up, as you push up, your back will probably arch. And that you don't want, okay? So your body should be rigid like it's a plank, okay? And you should be able to push up and down and come down just to the chest is touching the floor or till you're comfortable in your shoulders. But again, stay tight to your core. Yeah. If you do it out here, it's going to be more chest. If your elbows would be in more like this, it'd be more shoulder and tricep. A little bit harder to do. Okay. But for some people, that position right there is already going to be painful in their shoulders. So it's just a tough test because it's your body weight, and you can't vary the other leg weight to your knees. So you want to choose exercises to start with. You can vary the resistance very carefully, very measured. So when you go from one level to the next, you know that the increase isn't too great for the muscles that you're working and the joints you're working to protect your joints. We'll get a little bit more into that as far as other things you can do for prescription programs itself. Flexibility. The little test I'm going to have you do right now, well, none of you studied for this, little pop quiz. So if you can, have you sit it straight up in your chair. I know none of you have to move. You're always sitting perfectly in your chairs, right? I never sit straight up. Okay, so I love that. Whenever I say that, sit straight up, everybody's like I have a puppeteer and stands up. So you're sitting straight up in your chair. You're actually going to pull your belly button in a little bit, lift your chest up, and lean just forward a little bit from your hips. I'm going to make it tougher, okay, just in case somebody in here is flexible. What maybe you do is you can choose either leg. I'm just going to use my right leg here. You're going to hold your hip at 90 degrees, which the chair is doing right now. And once you're in this position, keep your ankle relaxed. You try to straighten your knee all the way out. If you can do that, that's awesome. Great flexibility. Oh, you all studied or something. Look at this. That's good. Excellent. So if you can sit up straight and you get your knees straight in that position, you have normal flexibility in your hamstrings. That's great because your hip is at 90 degrees. Your leg goes straight. That's normal range of motion. I won't do my left one because it doesn't work. No. You want to have balance too, as in balanced strength, balanced flexibility, and you also want to have balance as in not falling over. There are many tests out there. The ones I've come across are the ones that actually I think are really simple to do, but are very important, is the one-leg standing balance test. Basically what you do is you go someplace where it's safe, like next to a wall, all right? And you go on one leg, and first you just see if you can stand on one leg with your eyes open, right? Anybody want to try this? Everybody stand up for a minute. We sit too much. If you want to, you can stand up. If not, you don't have to. But just stand by your chair if you have room. And just have your hands, you can brace yourself on something. And whatever you do is you stand on either leg. I want you to stand with your knees slightly soft, not locked out, or you're going to be like a tree and you'll tip over, okay? So just have your knees slightly soft. You stand on one leg. Try to keep your upper body completely relaxed. I don't want to see any of this stuff, okay? Keep your upper body completely relaxed. That's good. Go the other leg. Nobody's falling over. Try the other leg. But does anybody notice any difference from one leg to the other? Okay, okay. Now, one thing you might notice, if you ever had an injury in one leg, like an ankle, a knee, or a hip, even if it was 10 years ago, you still might have less balance in that leg because it never maybe was trained to get balanced again. It's something you can work on. You want to have, again, you want to have balance as an equal balance. Now, here's how the test works for real. That was practice, but that's the easy part. Go on your better leg, have your hand by something, and you close your eyes. That's the test. Now, if you look online, I didn't bring the table, I didn't put the table up here. If you look online, this is actually a protocol that's been done with many people. And it actually, by decade, it'll tell you the number of seconds you stand on your leg with your eyes closed, it'll give you an age. For 70-year-olds, if you last less than 4 seconds, it would be normal for a 70-year-old. 20-year-olds, they can stand about 30 seconds on one leg with their eyes closed. So, and the thing is, this is the thing for the ages. You can have a seat again, thank you. This is the fitness for the ages. I don't think age matters. Because I've seen clients, I worked with clients from 4 years old to, as Ann said, 94. Norma's in the running right now, she's 93. She makes it through next July, she can handle me that long. She'll be tied as my oldest client ever, my 94-year-old client that I've had. But Norma's been working out for 10 years now. She came in at 83. She had never exercised in her life. And she hated it. She still does. But she does it. And she still sees me. And she's as strong now in many ways and has better posture and is stronger in many ways than she was at 83 years old. And she's 93. 93 and a half. Okay? But balance is something we're still working on. Now, she has some challenges. She also has some inner ear issues and some other things, but she's still working on it. And her posture is great. So she gives me motivation every day. But you can actually look that up. One leg standing balance test. There's a little protocol you do. Has a table there for age and the amount of time you can stand. Standing reach test. It's kind of new one to me. I guess I've heard of it before. You stand up straight and you reach forward. You see how far you can lean forward without falling forward. Okay, I think it's actually just one arm. But anyway, it's a pretty simple test. And then 5 times sit to stand. Actually, you get up 5 times sit to stand. Okay, there's a time on that. Most people that have normal balance should be able to get up 5 times up and down without actually touching the chair. I should have practiced, and I'll embarrass myself. Okay, so without touching, 5 times in less than 13 seconds. That's a good test, okay? So you do that, you get an A. If it's 14 seconds, it's an A minus. Okay, it's graded, whatever. But you can actually do these simple tests. You find them online. They're a great, simple thing to do for yourself. Now, I've heard before, and I've heard this many times, that for most people, especially as you get older, our greatest fear is not of death, but of falling. And for most people, as we get older, when we fall, death follows, because bad things happen after we fall and we break things. Now, there's an article, and I'll probably point it out again later, but I just reference real quickly, that said that fit people fall as frequently as unfit people. Say that again. Fit people, people that exercise, fit older people, fall as frequently as unfit older people. That title caught my attention. And hopefully I caught yours, so I'll come back to it later. So you have to stay to hear the ending of that story. Okay, but balance is very, very important. Now remember, if you don't know where you're going, you just might get there. Well, this is going from bad to worse. We're empty in the middle. X marks the spot. We're just in the middle of nowhere. That's where it came from. Okay, so you need to know where you're going. All right, so where do you want to be? Do you want to reduce your health risks? Do you want to have more function for daily life? Do you want to be able to be fit and do recreation? Snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, whatever, bowling, anything. Get out and play cards. Do you want to do a sport? It all starts with this basic things like strength, cardiovascular, balance, flexibility. All right? Whoops. Okay. Frank and Ernest are my fitness. If you haven't figured out, Frank and Ernest are my fitness experts. Not really too much of either. Not too fit and not too much of an expert, but they're good to check out what they're talking about here. I'm not expecting buns of steel. I just want to get the lead out. All right. So Frank's got low bar. Okay. So what kind of plan is best? The best plan is one that you can and will do. Okay. I hear people all the time on the phone and clients I work with. What's the best plan in the world? I'll give you the best plan in the world. What is that? You tell me what you can do. That's the best plan. Okay? It's got to be safe and effective. It's got to include some things, but it doesn't matter how well it's designed. It's all the implementation. One of my colleagues said once that a goal without a plan is just a wish. Okay? I want to lose weight. Great wish. How's it going to happen? You got to have a plan. Right where you are is where you start. Do an assessment. Where do you start? You stand on one leg for 4 seconds, the other leg for 3. That's where you start. 2 weeks later, as you work on it, guess what? It's 6 seconds, and it's 5 seconds, and then it's 7 and 7. Hey, now you're balanced. You'll get better. There's a lot of simple ways to do objective measurements just on your own at your home. And practice. It's not practice that makes perfect. It's perfect practice that makes perfect. When you stand in good posture, your posture will get better. If you exercise in good posture, your posture will get better. If you exercise in poor posture, guess what? You'll get poor posture, okay? Muscles have memory. They do have memory. Where do you go? Wherever you want, safely and effectively. All right? We have, a complete plan should include cardiovascular, strength, balance, and flexibility components. Back in 2011, there's new guidelines coming out shortly, but in 2011, the American College of Sports Medicine, or ACSM, sort of the governing body for the fitness industry, their guidelines came out for the first time. They had a fourth component. They've had cardiovascular for a while, they've had strength for a while, and they've had flexibility for a while, as far as guidelines. In 2011, they added a fourth component called neuromotor. And the neuromotor component is a balance component. And they said that all adults, as we age, as you work on complete fitness, one component you need to add in is balance exercises, balance activity. There's a rule of specificity, specific training, specific adaptation. It's called the SAID principle. In our field in fitness, we have acronyms just like anyone else. So in the fitness industry, the SAID principle, S-A-I-D, talks about specificity. Whatever you do specifically, your body will adapt to. If you sit in a couch, guess what? Your body will turn into a couch soon. Well, sofa spud, whatever. All right? If you exercise, your body will get more fit. It does. It adapts. If you exercise in cardiovascular, you'll develop more endurance. If you exercise in strength, your body will get stronger. And it will get stronger at any age. Guaranteed, without exception. I've seen it happen many, many times. I've had people that have had post-polio. Remember a gentleman I had about 8 to 10 years ago, used a cane his entire life. 61 years he'd been using a cane. His left leg still moved a little bit. So he asked me when he came in, can I get my left leg stronger? I said, can you move it? He said, yep. I said, you can get it stronger. If there's neurologic function, the muscle will get stronger. If a muscle works, it will work and it will get stronger, guaranteed, at any age. It'll even get bigger at any age. Didn't believe that for too many years, but just recently they've seen studies that showed that. It will get bigger. So, have you lost any weight yet? No. But at the moment I have difficulty finding my breath. Okay. So, maybe working out a little too hard there again. January 1st in the gym. All right. What can you do? How much time will it take? Here's some specifics. Here's kind of the guidelines. This is the meat of it all, I guess. So, moderate activity for cardiovascular, which means greater than or equal to 10 minutes. So anything you do with your large muscle groups continuously, if you wander around your house, while you're on the phone, you're moving around pretty quickly. Usually if you walk about 3 miles per hour, which is for most people pretty standard walking pace, 3 miles per hour is considered moderate activity. If you do that for 10 minutes, that's an exercise session. How many of you have ever heard that 10 minutes is an exercise session? Okay, good. It's getting out there. Not many people have. A lot of people still think it's got to be 6 days a week for an hour, or at least 30 minutes, or it doesn't count. Oh, I only got 29 minutes. Not even worth starting. Yeah, it is. Okay? 10 minutes is all it takes. I've seen studies where 3 times a week, maybe not so effective, but I've seen a study where there were a group of women, a large group, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 women. Half of them walked 5 days a week for 30 minutes. 150 minutes like the guidelines say, ideally. And the other half walked 7 days a week, but 10 minutes at a time. 70 minutes, less than half. Guess what happened? The one that walked 10 minutes at a time had about 80 to 90% of the health benefits of the other group in less than half the time. 10 minutes works. So you don't have to have a whole lot of time. You don't have to have a whole lot of equipment. You can do whatever you can, wherever you're at, and you'll get healthier if you can exercise brief periods of time. And if you're able to, or once you've trained for a while, if you can do vigorous activity, in this case, I'll give you a real quick, easy example of vigorous. If you walk at 3 miles per hour on the level, If you walk upstairs at the same rate, that's considered vigorous activity. We measure exercise really not by calories. How many of you were here last week for the dietetics, the nutrition? There probably was some talk about calories. In fitness, I know on all the equipment you'll see calories being measured, but in fitness, calories is not something you should be tracking when you're exercising. It's a scientific unit that's an amount of heat. It's the amount of heat needed to raise a liter of water 1 degree centigrade. That's a calorie. It's a unit of heat. It has nothing to do with fitness. When you want to measure fitness, we should actually be measuring oxygen consumption because we're aerobic beings. We use oxygen. That's a scientific measure we should use. And in exercise, in fitness, it's called a MET, M-E-T. A MET basically is, one MET is what you're all doing right now. You're all sitting here. You're all using a certain amount of oxygen per kilogram of body weight. That's a MET. When we exercise, everything we do is multiples of that. Sad to say, watching TV is actually less than 1 MET because our brain has less activity watching TV than just about anything else we do, even less than sleeping. So we can be brain dead to watch TV. Anyway, vigorous would be considered 6 METs or higher. When you're walking at 3 miles per hour, that's about 3 METs. When you walk upstairs, that's about 8 METs. That's vigorous. So if you have stairs in your house, if you have stairs you can walk, if you walk on the level and you get pretty fit doing that in 10-minute increments, eventually if you can walk upstairs, you can walk upstairs for 5 minutes, that's a vigorous exercise session. In 5 minutes, you've exercised. Going upstairs for 5 minutes. It's vigorous exercise, okay? And that's going to count, again, 3, 5, 7 times a week for 5 minutes. You have significant cardiovascular health benefits in 35 minutes a week, all right? Now, how much is our health worth? I'm hoping at least 35 minutes, okay? All right, strength training, resistance exercises. So by resistance, you saw Bernard, he was overdoing a little bit with that bar. That'd be resistance exercise. You can use body weight. You can use resistance bands. You can use milk jugs. You can use ice. I don't know, ice that comes after the workout. You can use anything that has some weight to it that you can challenge your muscles and then gradually progress and give them more resistance. That's what strength training does. You overload the muscle, let it rest and recover for a day or two, at least 1 day in between, try it again, and your body will get stronger. Now, cardiovascular exercise, the condition happens while you do it. So while you're walking, while you're jumping rope, while you're swimming, the condition happens basically while you're exercising. Strength training, that's not the case. In strength training, you're challenging your body while you do it and stressing your body in a good way, hopefully, stressing your body, and then that stress response for the next 1 to 2 days, your body responds to that and it gets stronger. So when you exercise and do the same exercises 1 or 2 days later, your muscles are stronger because they built up in response to that. So it's a little bit different in strength training that it actually happens after the workout and the next day or two where your body actually is getting stronger. Flexibility, 2 rules. If you stretch all the time or not at all. What I've seen in the literature is that most often when people get injured, it's when they're sporadic, inconsistent, stretch once in a while. That's when people get injured. That's when athletes get injured. If they do it occasionally or once in a while. If you're going to stretch, find stretches that work for you. Rule number 2, do the right type, and then do them all the time. Otherwise, don't do them at all. But if you have a stretching routine you're going to do for, say, 5 minutes when you're done exercising, and you're going to have 5 minutes when you're done, then do those all the time. Do it occasionally, you're not going to get the benefit, and you actually may cause injury down the road. Okay? It just won't be very effective. Integrate balance exercises. So maybe if you're doing say a bicep curl for your arms with weights in your hands, do it if you have 2 feet on the floor and try it with 1 foot on the floor. Try doing a shoulder press on one leg. Try doing it on one leg with your eyes closed. Just progress. Same weight, but it's going to get harder because your body's challenged by balancing. So you can do one exercise with both feet on the ground and one exercise with 1 foot on the ground and just integrate that right into your routine. Okay? Any questions on that? This is kind of the exercise prescription guidelines based on American College of Sports Medicine. Adults should do cardiovascular 3 to 5 times a week, strength training 2 to 3 times a week, all the major muscle groups, flexibility either all the time or not at all, and balance should be integrated all the time. Okay? Yes? Good question. Where do you see yoga?
Oh, I kind of see it all over.
Mm-hmm.
Balance, there's definitely flexibility.
Yep. Maybe excessive sometimes, some poses. So the question was, what about yoga? There's a lot of things out there now. There's Pilates, there's yoga, there's all kinds of Pilates. There's all kinds of stuff, blended, mixed, hybrids now. Yoga primarily would be, there's an emphasis on posture, there's an emphasis on range of motion, on relaxation. If there's a power yoga, there's probably some strength components. But one of the general rules, I'll give you a general rule here to qualify all these different programs, all the different exercise types. And this is based on physiology. So whenever I have questions like that, I look at something, well, what is that? I go back to the basics. And for me, the basics are physiology. In our body, we primarily have, well, when it comes to exercise, two primary fiber types, muscle fiber types. There's cardiac muscle, which is very unique. There's muscles in our gut and our arteries. But when it comes to exercise, we have slow twitch fibers and fast twitch fibers. And there's different energy systems that they use. Those fibers are designed to do something specifically. As I said before, that's SAID principle, because I said so. Very specific. So when I have slow twitch fibers, endurance fibers, when I walk for a long time, guess what? They'll get better because they're being used. That's what they're there for. When I walk for a long time, I'm not going to get stronger because those fast twitch fibers, the strength muscle fibers, aren't being used. They're at rest. They're not going to be active when you're doing something for a long duration. They're not designed that way. Okay, it's apples and oranges, if you will. They're different. When you do strength exercises, when you use resistance, when you use your body weight or resistance, the slow twitch fibers kind of shut down and the fast twitch fibers take over. And they adapt and they get stronger. That's what they do. They don't get better at working longer, they get better at getting stronger. The other fibers get better at working longer, but they don't get stronger. The slow twitch fibers won't gain size, they'll just get better at using oxygen and working longer. The other fibers will get better at getting bigger and getting stronger because that's what they do. Those fast twitch fibers, the ones that get stronger, any exercise that you do where the muscle fatigues or fails in less than a minute, that exercise is going to produce strength. If you do an exercise that lasts more than a minute, definitely more than 2 minutes, you're not working the fast twitch fibers, you're not going to get stronger. And I'll give you some examples of what I see all the time in here, and it frustrates me because we're breaking rules of physiology. When someone does 500 crunches, 500 sit-ups, to me it's a waste of about 480 of those. Because anything you do beyond 20 repetitions is probably beyond that minute time frame, and you're just working on endurance. Now, most times when someone hurts their back, I wouldn't say it's probably not from lifting up the mouse 500 times in a row. Okay? It's lifting up the table once and they hurt their back. They need strength for that, not endurance. So for me, strength, I think, is the first and foremost of importance. You have to have endurance, cardiovascular. I know it's our heart doesn't beat, we don't do too well. So cardiovascular is important. But strength training, I think, has always been given kind of second fiddle. To me, strength training is very, very critical. If you have knee problems, if you have foot problems, if you can't get up out of a chair, how can you walk? You have to have strength. And you can get stronger at any age. And if you have strength, you have posture, you have core stability, you have joint health, then you can do your endurance exercises. Pool can help, otherwise. Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of things. First, when it comes to people who are in the geriatric
Yes.
section, I know so a lot of physical therapists that don't walk up and down stairs because especially if you have osteoarthritis.
Right. Yep.
You always see people saying, and I'm just wondering how you modify programs to discount that.
Good.
And also, do you think, because I read a couple of things that sort of indicate that some people have a genetic predisposition to not being able to get stronger as fast as others.
Right. Oh, definitely. Yep. Yep. So two questions, quite different, but I'll address the second one first if I could. The second question was, by genetics, some people get stronger at a slower rate than others. Now, there's probably some deeper physiology in that as far as genetics and hormonal balances and stuff like that. But just by contrast, if you look at the Olympics, how many of you ever watched the Olympics, the Summer Olympics, Winter Olympics? There are sprint athletes and there are endurance athletes, right? The endurance athletes will never get stronger. Why? Because they're endurance athletes. They were born to be a marathoner. And the other ones that were shot putters, they were born to be a shot putter. No matter what they do, they'll never be a marathoner. And they could probably get there somewhat because they could train themselves a little bit, but the marathoner will never get big and strong because their fibers are predisposed to being slow and are small and work at endurance. Even people with the same fiber type still might have a different rate of gaining strength. Part of it could be neurologic, where our muscle fibers are innervated. So there's all kinds of factors maybe why a person might gain strength more slowly. With all things being said, though, if a lot of people don't work out with enough intensity to get stronger. So often for so many years I've heard people say, well, I'm doing light weights with lots of reps, I just want to build tone. Well, guess what? You're wasting your time. Because if you look at, how many of you have ever had a leg or a limb in a cast for a while? I've had several of them over the years with football. The muscle shrivels up, gets all soft and flaccid, and it's just not very pretty looking. There's no tone because it's lost all its strength. How does it get tone back? It gets stronger. So if you want to gain tone in the muscle, you need to get it stronger because tone is a level of neurologic activity at rest. It's a muscle being stimulated at rest, so it's firm versus being really soft. And so the stronger a muscle is, the more tone it's going to have. So doing 100 repetitions of something is, again, a waste of about 80 reps. Initially, maybe learning the movement by doing a lot of reps is okay, so you learn that pattern, so it's safe. It takes about 2,000 repetitions over time to learn a movement, so it becomes automatic, a motor pattern. But once you learn that pattern, you can push the muscle harder and harder to get stronger and stronger and gain more tone, and it will respond, and you'll stay safe because you've learned that pattern. It'll do that pattern. Okay, so does that answer your question? Somebody was slower?
How do you know if you're training someone if they have a genetic predisposition?
Right. The knees. Yep. Yeah. How do I know when I train people? It's trial and learn. I mean, unless they do a muscle biopsy to look at fiber types, I look at how they respond. I watch when I first train someone, I look at their body awareness. We call it kinesthetic awareness. How well do they know what their right from their left hand almost sometimes? How well do they do movements, perform movements? So to me, it's trial and observe, trial and learn, and then to see what they respond to best. So what I would do is I'll train them so I have good posture, good technique, good awareness. And then as I push them, I watch to see how well they hold their posture, how well they hold their technique, how safe it is. And then as they're able to work with greater intensity, I watch for the response. Some people do better with their body type by doing 20 repetitions and not really doing much less than that, 15 to 20, because that's just how they feel best and they respond best. Others do much better by doing maybe 8 to 10 repetitions with heavier weight. That's something that's kind of by trial and learning, not really error, trial and learning. I have a method to my madness. Okay. The other question was on osteoarthritis. Big part of the population, probably 25-30%, is predisposed to osteoarthritis. Basically what it is, hey, I've got a marker. I've got 2 markers. Can I draw a little bit for you? Probably not going to look much better than Frank and Ernest, but it's about that time. So I'm going to have 2 cookie sheets. That comes to anatomy, believe me. So I have 2 cookie sheets, and they're dry metal sheets, and I rub them together, and you hear friction. And then it gets hot and it hurts, okay? That would be 2 bones without any cartilage. So I want to have some cartilage on them. In this case, in the metal plans, I want to have some Teflon. What does Teflon do? It's nice and smooth and slippery, right? But if it's dry, still has some friction, and Teflon will wear away and it'll still get rough, right? So what I want to do is between the Teflon, I'm going to have a little layer of oil. In the body, we actually have a little seal there called the joint capsule. So in our body, we have bone, and we have cartilage, and we have synovial fluid. The synovial fluid is super lubricating, super slippery. Ever step on some ice that has water on it? Right? Really slippery? That synovial fluid in our joint is even slipperier than that. Really cool, really slippery. But as that dries out, you get less of it. Pretty soon that's gone. Then the Teflon gets rough, and pretty soon that disappears. Then the bone gets rough. You start getting spurs, bumps. This is gone. Pits. That's not a pretty sight, okay? That's arthritis in the joint. The bones get rough, pitted. The ends lose all the cartilage. It's painful. And a lot of times when there's pain, our body automatically responds by inhibiting movement. If it hurts, don't do it. Well, that's not good, because when you don't use muscles, guess what? If you don't use it, you lose it. So if you have a joint that's painful, you've got to find a way to exercise the joint and strengthen the muscles to take the load off of the joint and put the load back on the muscles. Now, it's a vicious cycle. If you avoid the pain, guess what? You'll get weak really fast, and it's still going to be painful, and then anything you do is going to be painful. Pretty soon, you're not able to move at all. Because you're avoiding the pain, you're getting weaker and weaker, and then you're stuck. So what I've found over the years, and I've seen some studies on this, I know that people with really bad knees. I had a client come in a number of years ago. She was 83. She used her walker. Whenever she bent her right knee, she'd just stop and wince because it hurt so bad. Her doctor said her knees were so bad she should have been in bed, both of them. Within a year, she lost 30 pounds. She was 83 years old. She lost 35 pounds, cut her insulin down by 50%, and she was walking normally. And I said, Blanche, you got to slow down. You're ready people over with your walker, okay? We couldn't tell anymore which leg was her bad leg, her worst leg. What we did strength training. We found exercise that worked for her, initially just isometric, just doing this. Somehow with her legs, her muscles could strengthen without moving her joint. It loaded it, it made the muscle stronger, but it didn't move under load, which kind of hurts. It just did this. She got stronger. Pretty soon she could actually move her knee with some load, and then pretty soon she was walking normally again. So there are progressions you can do. And for most cases when there's pain, it's a response that our body has to tell us to protect it, but it doesn't tell us to stop moving it. When you use your muscles and they cause movement, there's a natural function in our body. It's a pain inhibition response that when you have pain, if you allow the muscles to do the movement, they will not cause further injury. Say that again. If you allow the muscles to do the movement, it may hurt, but it's not hurting you. Okay, so you do the right movement, and again, it may not be moving at all. It may just be loaded in the joint isometrically, and any trainer should know what that means. It's basically contracting the muscle and not moving, but it makes the muscle get stronger very quickly, and it works very well. You find an angle where the joint doesn't hurt or where it hurts the least, and that's where you strengthen it first. Then you find another angle, strengthen it there. Pretty soon you have the whole range of motion stronger, and you can move again. And I've had many clients that either avoided knee replacement or they had a knee replacement up and walking in half the time before of others because they did the strength training prior to surgery. To me, strength training it's amazing what I've seen people do as far as avoid injuries, come back. I've had a client who, she's 60, 61 now. I think we're talking about this, I think it's 5 years ago now. She's 55. Bad skiing accident in Colorado. She fractured her tibial head or shin bone, fractured that head of that bone into pieces. Had to be glued and screwed together. She was 55 years old. She was running sprints the other day in the rack. Okay? So she came back, but she had been very strong before that. Okay? So strength training is critical. And I just can't emphasize enough that if you have pain, find something to work with you. Find exercise you can do that may hurt some, but as long as the muscles are controlling your movement, it's not going to be injuring you. Because the muscles will automatically be inhibited before they actually cause further injury. I'll say that again. The muscles will automatically be inhibited. They'll be restrained or refrained from pushing too far and injuring you. It's an automatic response. I mean, as an athlete or someone you could probably force your way through it. But if you work with the muscles, they'll automatically kind of shut down before they'll actually cause further damage, and they'll get stronger, and in the end, you'll be better for it. I've seen it many, many times over the years. All right, let's move on. Body composition management. It's exercise and nutrient-dense foods, healthy foods. And to me, body composition management is a term I use. I never use the term weight management because I could cut off a leg and lose weight, but that's not what I want to do, okay? I want to make sure I have the right body composition. And even though I'm morbidly obese on the BMI scale, my body composition isn't too bad right now, okay? And all my other health numbers, blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, those things are all pretty good, okay? So to me, body composition management comes from exercise and nutrition, and there's some genetics involved, obviously. But you'll be healthier if you manage that than if you try to lose weight. One more plug I've got to put in here on the weight thing. All right, when you exercise, how many of you or how many of you know people that exercise to lose weight? Have you ever heard of that? When you lose weight, you have to exercise to lose weight, okay? I don't agree, okay? To me, if you step on the scale to measure success of exercise, to me that's like stepping on the scale and trying to figure out the temperature outside. It's not going to work. The scale does not show you whether or not exercise has been successful. It's not going to show you ever. It doesn't show your heart rate. It doesn't show your blood pressure. It doesn't show your blood sugar. It doesn't show your strength. It doesn't show your flexibility. It shows none of those things. It just shows mass against gravity. That's all it shows. It could be a pile of rocks there. Okay? It doesn't discern what that is. I know some scales now have body composition on them. They step their scales you step on barefoot and it's an electric current through your body. It doesn't shock you. You can't feel it. But it determines body hydration or body composition. Those are pretty good. But body composition, not weight management. All right, let's move on. Some more help here from our fitness experts. I told you to use the stairs instead of elevators. Taking escalators isn't meeting me halfway. Okay? And Signing up for aerobics class to meet women was a great idea. How many did you meet? So far, just the 2 nurses in the emergency room. Okay, so you can overdo it. Too much of a good thing, okay? Or too much too soon. Comprehensive fitness plan also includes, let's see, strength training. This must be silt in my body. All my muscles feel like putty, okay? And it's also known as resistance training. I think Frank and Ernest have a, yeah. Let's just start with the machine. No. Let's try the band. No, I won't do it. I won't work out. You can't make me. What's Frank doing? That's his version of resistance training. Okay. All right. Okay. So that won't work. Wrong track. But he's pretty adamant about it. Okay. So anyway, they're not too much on the experts of the fitness side, but I thought I'd bring them in to get their perspective. You just eat too much. Photosynthesis has nothing to do with it. Okay. Are you on a diet? I've had several of them at one time. Okay. So eating well, eating nutrient-dense food, and if you're here last week, you probably heard a lot about that. It's whole grains, it's fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, lots out there on nutrition. So research, whoa, slow down, there we go. I don't know if you read these or not, but there's a lot of research out there. For the sake of time, I'm going to touch base on a few of these. So let's see. I do remember what I told you before about fitness and seniors and falling. That one's in here somewhere. I'll find that one. But I thought I'd bring some of the things in here on the bottom of the slide. I have children on top there and obesity and stuff. But this whole thing with brain health. How many of you have heard or read something recently on the relationship of exercise and brain? Have you? How many of you heard the term neuroplasticity? Neuroplasticity. That's sort of like, no, it's not our brain being putty. Our brain at any age does some neuroregeneration. We know our brain does do some regeneration at any age. What's interesting is that with exercise, they found many, many examples in many different ways how exercise helps your brain be healthier. One that I've seen that I thought is, again, it's the plug for strength training. But with strength training, and our brain is very specific in what it allows to cross the blood-brain barrier. It's very, very specific in what it allows to cross that barrier. When we strength train, our body releases certain enzymes to help repair and rebuild and build greater strength in the muscles. And part of that rebuilding, part of those enzymes are not just the muscle fibers, but the neurologic input, the nerves, the motor nerves that go there. So those enzymes help build the muscle fibers, but also the motor nerves, the nerve part of the muscles to get stronger. Guess what? Those enzymes cross the blood-brain barrier, and they help nerves in the brain to regenerate and become new. They don't make you smarter, but help your nerves to become new again in your brain, younger, by strength training at any age. Connection found between fitness level, brain activity, executive function. They found that when people exercise, their cognitive function, their decision-making, things like that, that part of their brain was enhanced. They could actually think more clearly, make better decisions, unless they're not very wise, I guess, but it helps their brain work better as far as decision-making. Okay, so there's all kinds of exercise studies on the brain and keeping the brain healthy, neuroplasticity. The physical activity in the middle. Physical activity may leave the brain more open to change. Basically, that study was showing the brain's capacity to change, the neuroplasticity, its ability to, again, to regenerate was enhanced by exercise. Here's more disease-related. Short bursts, high-intensity exercise does more for type 2 diabetes. How many of you here know someone that has type 2 diabetes? And it's going up dramatically. I remember when I came into the industry, we used to call it adult onset and juvenile diabetes because it was either juveniles or young people that got type 1 or it was people that were 60s and 70s adults that got type 2. Well, now we don't ever use that anymore. Why? Because there are, instead of 60 and 70-year-old, there are 16 and 17-year-olds getting type 2 diabetes because they're overweight and inactive and their body isn't sensitive to insulin any longer. Exercise works, again, like medicine. When you do if a person has diabetes, does cardiovascular exercise and or strength training, either one has same effect. When you exercise for 15 to 30 minutes, your body becomes more insulin sensitive. It's like taking a dose of insulin, but you're not. You're helping your body become more efficient at using insulin you already have. Our insulin receptors are in our muscles. So when we exercise, those insulin receptors are turned on and become more efficient and more sensitive to insulin again for 24 to 48 hours. So I mentioned Blanche earlier. At 83, she was taking insulin. She was on medicine. She had type 2 diabetes. She was able to cut her insulin down by, I said 50%, I think it was like 35 to 50%, 6 days a week. And it was just like ideally or perfect fit for the time frame. When you exercise, that insulin sensitivity effect will last for 24 to 48 hours. So she exercised Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So that means Monday and Tuesday, she reduced her insulin because of Monday's session. Wednesday and Thursday from Thursdays. Friday and Saturday from Fridays. Guess what? On Sunday, because the effect wore off from Friday, she had to bump her insulin up a little bit. Otherwise, Monday morning, her blood sugar would be too high. It was that structured. By her exercise routine, her blood sugar and her insulin was right on time, right on the schedule. So it works. I've seen it just as one example. I've seen it with hundreds of people, and the studies show the same thing. Exercise is medicine. Again, it helps your body work better. 30-minute sessions help relieve asthma symptoms, all kinds of stuff on diabetes and asthma, mental health, up to moderate depression. Most people with moderate depression, if they're on regular exercise routine, are going to feel better than being on any medication. And there's no side effects. It's a natural. And here's the WISE group, okay, years of life experience. An 80-year-old runner. Do elite athletes have anti-aging secrets in their muscles? These titles sometimes catch my attention just because of the title, so I read through this article. The study showed that they looked at athletes in their 80s. They looked at younger individuals, fit or not, and they looked at muscle ability to contract, speed of contraction, what they tested. So did these old athletes have young muscles because they were still athletes and they were running fast? What they found is that the 80-year-old athlete and the 80-year-old non-athlete, their muscles actually contracted at the same speed. They weren't really faster because they were exercising. But what they did find is their muscles worked more efficiently. And they worked in different combinations, and they worked in different patterns, and they just worked better because they were athletes. So it didn't keep the muscles young, but it kept them working better, okay? So exercise works in many ways. The phrase that I would say with exercise is it's probably not going to give you more years of life, but it's going to give you more life in your years, okay? So if a person's 50 and they exercise, they might not live to be any longer than 75 years old than the person that doesn't exercise. But I would venture to say that for the next 23 years, the exercise will probably have a high quality of life. And for the last 2 years, maybe not so much, where the other person that doesn't exercise after age 50, there's be a steady decline. And for about 20-some years, they're not going to have a very good quality of life. So, and there's studies on here. Somewhere it says lifespan, genetic background, and physical activity both matter. They showed a genetic predisposition to age is your body's clock. It's going to pretty much run the same if you exercise or not. There's not much difference. But the quality of life to the very end of life can be so much better when you exercise. Here's the one. Where did it go? The following. In the middle of the fit elderly fall as much as their couch potato peers. Okay? Now that one caught my attention because I took offense at that. I don't see that. All right. But here's what it said. Batch of specificity. These fit adults that they tested, they never worked on balance. Well, of course they're going to fall if they never work on balance. If you're on a treadmill holding on, or you're in a chair lifting weights, you're not going to get better balance because you're not working on your balance. So they fell just as much. But even though they fell just as much, guess what? They didn't get hurt as much. Okay? So I had a client I worked with for several years. She was a rheumatologist. And so arthritis was her specialty, right? We talked about, and she had osteoporosis. So she knew what's coming, right, with her osteoporosis and the risk of arthritis. And so we talked about bone density and all the medications that are out there and all the stuff that people should do for medications to work on bone density. And I had this study in mind that I haven't seen or come across yet, and I haven't been able to do it. It's that I would like to take a whole lot of 40-year-old women that are predisposed to osteoporosis and have half of them not ever take any medication, but have them exercise on strength training and balance and cardiovascular, but especially strength training and balance. And then 20 years later, measure the rate of falling. And if they do fall, I'd venture to, even if their bones got brittle, because you may not change that with exercise anyway, it's sort of gray on that. Can you increase bone density? Probably not so much as an adult. What I've seen more so is that by the time girls hit puberty, 9, 10, 11 years old, with about a 90% accuracy, you can tell which ones have osteoporosis, because most bone density is laid down prepubescent. Pre-puberty, most of their bone density is already determined for life. You'll still add on during the teenage years, but after age about 21 or so, not so much. You can retain it, but if you didn't fall, or you didn't fall as sharply, it probably wouldn't matter if your bones were brittle because they wouldn't break if you didn't fall, or they wouldn't break if you didn't fall as sharply. So even if they got more brittle and you exercised and they got brittle, if you didn't fall because you had better balance, you still would have less hip fractures. That's my study. So I'm looking for it. Researchers see promising results in treating age-related decline in muscle mass and power. 20 years ago, I guess when I started in the industry 25 years ago, we thought after age 60, that's it, you just get weaker. That's it. We don't, not at all, okay? Right now, what I've seen is that at least until age 60, you can retain all of your strength till age 60. And I'm in my 50s, and I'm going to strive for that at least age 60 mark before I lose any strength at all. And right now, I'm right on course. I'm not losing any strength at all from the last 30 years. But after age 60, they believe there's maybe a 1% loss per year, 1% loss. That means if you can lift 100 pounds at age 60, at age 80, you'll still be able to lift 80 pounds. Okay? If you can only lift 10 pounds at age 60, and you have to be able to lift 10 for daily function, well, then any little bit you lose, you're going to lose function. So I'd say have a bigger margin. The bigger margin you get, the greater chance you have throughout your life to be able to do what you need to do for function because you have a margin, a threshold, higher threshold. We know that you can gain muscle strength at any age. I have clients that I've seen prove that. They're stronger now at 93 than they were at 83. Not only that, you can actually gain some muscle size back. So not only gain strength, you actually can even gain some muscle size back because the muscle responds and grows a little bit again. It's called hypertrophy. But it actually works at any age. Not quite as much as when we're teens in our 20s, but it still works. Okay? So, is that the last? Oh, on another note, remember to get a little help from your friends. Social networks can help motivate people. This study was actually interesting. They had, I think there were doctorate students in a college, 200 some students, and they put them in random groups. One group had no motivation from outside sources, just had an exercise plan. Another group had messages sent to them, email, text. Another group was assigned with 5 random peers that were anonymous. They didn't know their names, but they had 5 peers that they saw live reports every day on their exercise, on their eating, on their, the steps they walked. And lo and behold, the group that had 5 anonymous, unknown peers in their group, they did much better at exercise adherence for the year or the duration of study than the other groups. So having someone else, having a social support or someone you know or don't know, maybe it's better off not knowing them so they can't nag you every day. I don't know. But you want to try to go with someone to get some support for you, encourage you. All right? So let's see if there's anything else from Frank and Ernest. I think there's one more here. You got to make it a priority. Frank, he's religious about it. He ends up on his knees every time he's done. Okay? So you got to be consistent. All right. And that will do it. I'll leave those guys up there. Those guys. Any questions? Any thoughts? Yeah.
Regarding strength training and doing 20 reps versus
right.
like 3,
or
10.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the question about doing 20 repetitions, like one set of that, or doing maybe 3 sets of 8 repetitions or 8 to 10. What I've seen in the research, most of what I've seen is that when you begin exercising, they found that most people have just as much effectiveness and the same results of the first year of doing just one set of 15 to 20 reps or whatever range. They'll have the same results pretty much as people doing 3 sets of 10 to 15 repetitions, whatever. If you do less repetitions with more weight, you will gain more strength. That's just how the body works. So if you fail by 8 repetitions or fail by 20, this is going to build more strength. The 20 is going to build more strength and endurance. There's a little different fiber types. Start getting a little bit more detailed physiology there. But so one set when you start, one set of 15 to 20, and then maybe a second set of 8 to 10 would be maybe the way to go. One for strength endurance and one for strength. That's actually what the guidelines say for ACSM, American College of Sports Medicine. They recommend an adult do 2 sets of each exercise for your large muscle groups, legs and so on. One set of 15 to 20 for strength endurance, and then one set with heavier resistance of 8 to 12 reps to build strength. Okay. The lighter weight with more reps, sort of a warm-up. Check your posture, check your technique, adjust according to your strength. If you get 20 real easily, you definitely want to go a good amount heavier to work that 8 to 12 to get stronger. What I see most often when people begin is that they're cautious, which I understand, but they just don't put the effort in to get stronger. If you're going to go there, to me, time is valuable. If you're going to go there, get something out of it. Be effective. Be safe, but be effective.
What about time versus number of reps,
right.
like 30 seconds?
Yes.
intervals. Or,
Yeah, so Ann probably, I think you were there when I had my little thing going at the rack. For a while, they have all new equipment there now, but for a while, I actually implemented this harebrained idea that we had timers on every piece of equipment out there, digital timers, the little kitchen timers from one of the stores around here. And it seemed like a harebrained idea, but it really was based on physiology. Finally, we were doing something based on physiology, so just, oh, I'm going to do 3 sets of 5 or 3 sets of 8. Why? Because Arnold said so. I mean, our body works on time. I don't think any of you have a little rep counter built into your wrist. 1, 2, it doesn't do that, right? Our body knows time. When you exercise, if you exercise with a certain intensity, if you fail within a minute, I'll tell you exactly which energy systems you use and which fiber types you use if you fail in a minute. If you last 5 minutes, I'll tell you which energy systems you use, which muscle fibers you had, and the result you're going to get. If you exercise 30 seconds or less, I'll tell you again exactly what results you're going to get. So an example that Ann talked about time and using time, I have athletes that have trained for different sports. And I played football, so when I train athletes, football players, I kind of am envious of them now because I wish I knew a tenth of what I know now back when I trained, so I wouldn't have wasted so much time. So when I train football players now, I look at the average football play lasts about 6 seconds. And when I did my math, I realized that after playing 4 years of college football and playing on offense for every down for 4 years, I played a total, in 4 years of football in college, I played a total of 4 hours and 48 minutes of football in 4 years. Because the average play lasts about 6 seconds. We ran about 60 plays a game. So when I put that into my mind into training, now I train football players when they're getting ready for the season. I'll train them with heavy resistance, with large muscle groups, and I'll have them fail in less than 10 seconds. Why? Because it's very, very sport specific. In a football play, they need to put all their effort out for about 6 seconds, recover for 25 seconds, tell some jokes, then go back and do it again. Well, forget the jokes part, but they have to recover again and again and do that over and over. So we train very specifically. For daily life, we don't have to push ourselves that hard. Unless you have a job or a task where you're lifting building blocks every day or something. But for fitness, it doesn't have to be quite as extreme. But if you want to get stronger, you've got to work hard. But not for very long. That's the cool part. You don't have to work very long. Anything else? Yeah, over here. We'll get back to you. Good job. Yeah, it varies a lot. You can find free advice on the internet. It's probably worth about that much. You got to be very cautious if you find stuff on the internet, but you can find some people I'm sure will do, coaching, I guess, and training by the internet or by phone. I don't know, the rates will vary a lot. Personal training varies from probably $30 to $40 for a half an hour around here that I've heard of, and I know what the rack charges. It's around $40 to $45 for a half an hour. There are usually consults that are done first, or should be done first, by anyone that you work with, so they get to know what your goals are, what your background is, what your needs are, what your resources are. That should all be done as part of a consult. So when I sit down with someone, I'll sit down for an hour first and just have that conversation of what are your goals, what's your history, what are you looking for, what are the resources you have, and then build a plan around that, and then the sessions start after that. I think if you would work with someone for an hour a couple of times, you should have a full workout in place and have your questions answered, and you should feel pretty comfortable with being able to go on your own. You may check in periodically. Hour sessions will cost probably $50 to $60 with trainers that are experienced. So I know it's a lot more in the cities, but it depends where you go in the markets. So, anyone else? Someone over here. Yeah.
The question I got for a lot of folks here is, a lot of folks make excuses for exercise.
Mm-hmm.
We're just too busy.
Mm-hmm.
You got to make the time to do it. Mm-hmm. Take it from a guy in a wheelchair, nobody's talking about.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times I don't want to get off the bed in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to push yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have it up here. You got to have it in here.
Right.
If you want to keep a daily routine.
So, motivation, right?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. And, a certain football team was my motivation to keep me going this year. I motivated that team to getting to be better in here and up here.
Mm-hmm.
Everything changes because there's folks of all different ages in here, I see. So exercising is going to be much different for every age gap out there.
Right. And the reason for it too, I'd say, right?
I've challenged myself, to start out back when elementary. I get trouble with my teacher. They put us in a corner and have us hold our arms like this for a period.
Got stronger by misbehaving.
Yeah, and then I noticed if you're sitting on your chair, hold your legs straight up.
Mhm.
Straight in front is the only you can hold them for,
Mhm.
you know, the straight.
Right.
Everything changes when life changes.
Mhm. Yeah, I appreciate that with the motivation part of it. I talk to people again all over the country every day, and I ask them, one of the questions we ask in almost every call, if it's the first one or the fifth one or whatever, is are there any obstacles, are there any barriers to succeeding at this goal? And many times they have an exercise goal. And I kind of joke about it with people. Sometimes they'll say it and sometimes they won't. But if they don't say anything, I'll ask, well, is there an obstacle between your ears? Because a lot of times that's the biggest one for most people, okay? So here's a little challenge for you. When you want to exercise and you have that wish, okay, first of all, make a plan. Make a detailed plan. Leave no detail to chance. No detail to chance. I'm going to wear my black shoes, 2 of them, with my black socks. I'm going to lay them out at 6:01 tomorrow morning. I'm going to go in the car, drive, literally leave no detail to chance. Because if you have that detailed plan, your brain doesn't have a chance to think to make another decision. You just follow your plan. If you are not motivated, don't wait till you're motivated, because your health is going to suffer until you get motivated. Here's a little challenge to you. 20 seconds of courage. Make a plan, and if it's to walk, to exercise, whatever it is, start that exercise no matter how unmotivated you are. Just try it for 20 seconds and see what happens. I don't think most of you, after you put your shoes on and get dressed, will stop it for 20 seconds, right? So don't worry about being motivated. Just do it for 20 seconds and see what happens, okay? Don't wait for motivation. Yes?
I noticed sometimes there isn't great coordination between physical therapists and practitioners
Yeah.
that people go to and train.
Transition.
I'm wondering what your experience is, to what degree you sort of rely on physical therapists versus
Right, right. Well, that disconnect between physical therapy and maybe personal trainers, I appreciate because over the years I've worked with many physical therapists and they're great. I mean, they are well educated. Mostly they're well intended. They have protocols to follow. They take people from in pain and dysfunction or no function to great function. But there is a disconnect. I think there's still this divide, sometimes in communication or education. I think sometimes just there's a gap in maybe our healthcare system that leaves people off too soon from therapy or no therapy and then into training or physical fitness. There are, I'm sorry to say, there are a lot of fitness professionals that are not that well educated, okay? They maybe have picked up a 2-day certification. I actually have this shirt on, and I actually have to talk to that because I actually go around the country and I do 2-day weekend personal trainer certification courses, and I have a hard time many times with some of those people passing. And I don't discourage them or I don't set them up to fail, but I challenge them to succeed so that if they do pass with this name on their certificate, that I hope they're qualified, just to start and let them know there's a lot to learn. So the disconnect, I think, sometimes in education. The trainers sometimes don't know what they don't know. But I also see physical therapists, and I see a lot of protocols and maybe restrictions or just the process of thinking of injury that actually is a disconnect from fitness and function down the road. And I think sometimes I see protocols that are given, exercises that are given in therapy, that they're almost contradicting an exercise a person's going to do when they start getting into fitness because of the way it's not instructed or is instructed, I guess. But there is a disconnect, and I've struggled with that over the years. I always try to find and I work at the rack, so we have active PT right there, and they are awesome. They bring people on the floor. We just integrate right in. It's pretty seamless. They do a great job, and many physical therapists do that. But there is a disconnect in many places. I still do see that. Yeah. So I agree. I see it, and I hope it's getting better. I don't, overall the fitness field is coming up, I think, as far as education demands. There's even talk of licensure for personal training. I don't think it's going to happen, but hopefully the accreditation process that we had to go through for NIDA, I started working with them about 10 years ago. My third job is I do weekend courses for NIDA, National Exercise Trainers Association, and we've raised our bar a lot from when I started. The criteria we have now for the different domains of learning are pretty in-depth. People can't just come in for a weekend and pass. They've got to study a book for several months at least and have a background before they can pass and be basic training. All right. Anyone else? A question or two yet, if you like. Yeah, in the back.
I hear talking, and I understand you're a trainer, but why is it going just for a staying active every
Right.
day? I mean, that was my goal.
Glad you brought that up. Yes.
Every day.
Right.
Different
Right.
things.
You're right.
Now we can
Yeah. Great.
getting out of the car and
Walking.
walking to do your errands instead of driving.
Exactly.
Biking instead of driving.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I talked about fitness tonight, and I did bias it a lot towards exercise. But a great point being made is, the emphasis I had tonight on fitness was on exercise. I did mention the difference between activity and exercise. Activity was something less than 10 minutes, but activity is very, 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 very important. Okay? And I'll give you just a little bit of that, what I mean by that. In the last 7 years, there's been a lot of research in a field of study called inactivity physiology. Now, my background, I've got an exercise physiology background. Inactivity physiology is the other end of the spectrum. It's not sedentary. It's actually the study of what happens when we sit too much and too long. When we sit for more than an hour at a time, even a fit person, when we sit for more than 1 hour at a time, our body goes into a disease state. It literally goes into a disease state as though it's sick. And they found that when people sit more than 7 hours a day or more than 8 hours a day, it's a much, much higher risk of disease and early death. If we sit more than 7, even fit people will die earlier if they sit more than 7 or 8 hours a day. The study done with about 15,000 fit Australians. I know they're different down on the other side of the world, but they're still human. They did the exercise thing, but they sat a lot. And the group that sat more than 8 hours a day had very, very high risk of early death. Sitting is the new smoking. It's that bad for our health. So be active. When you sit for an hour, get up and do something. Put your TV on pause, put a timer on, put a post-it in your head. Do something. Get up every hour and walk for at least 3 to 4 minutes. Just 3 to 4 minutes will reset your body's physiology back to normal. There's a study I saw, actually, a little program, I guess. It was called 20, 28, and 2. And basically what they were saying in their study was that for every half hour, you could sit for 20 minutes, stand for 8, and walk for 2 minutes. So there comes your 4 minutes of walking per hour, right? So that was every half hour, to sit for 20, stand for 8 minutes if you're working, and then walk for 2 minutes. But at least every hour, 3 to 4 minutes, walk and move around. Park your car further away. I love the people that drive around the rack to get that front row spot because they might be too tired to exercise. Okay? So I park far away if I have to because people are watching me. No. Yeah, it's cold out. Did you run faster? No. So anyway, I appreciate your time tonight. I don't have any cards along, but I'm at the rack. There's a couple of us, Johns, out there in personal training, but I'm the one I'm the old one.